Next, elected officials, this upcoming cycle. We're going to have two parts tonight. One addressing our controller, and the second, our local judges. So, we hope that indeed you'll be able to stay for both sections of this, and I think they'll both be extremely informative, as I know they will. I'm going to open it officially in a moment by asking you to stand up and face the flag, and we'll do the pledge. I want you to take note, not now, on my signal. And I'm going to ask you to remain standing after we finish the pledge for just 15 seconds in honor of our veterans and our first responders, and in recognition of Juneteenth Day and July 4th, our National Independence Day. So on my signal, we'll do such. The panelists who are present will be introduced shortly, and they'll be introduced after we say our pledge. So if I can ask you now, if you will stand. Let's do this in unison. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Take a minute out. We're a cell phone society, so just going to ask you to check your cell phones, make sure that it's on vibrate or silence and such. And I'm going to turn this over now to our coordinator for order of operations, Mr. John D. Giovanni.
You show respect not only to the candidates, but fellow people that are in the audience. No quarrels, no shouting. I will explain the rules to the candidates if they want to go over it again. I will. We have how we pick number one and number two. Questions normally are always asked for all the candidates the same question. They answer in order. We rotate the order. Tonight I'm going to make it a little different. I'm going to ask each one a particular question only for them. And then the other 7 questions we will follow our normal procedure. We'll go back and forth and the rest of the questions. We have a electronic keeper. Volunteer for this evening. The opening statement and the closing statement will be 2 minutes each. We have 2 questions. We give you 3 minutes. That's how we can set 2 for everyone, but 1 or 2 of you, so we'll give you a little bit more time, and maybe a little more if you may want to explain. It'll be 3 minutes. Questions? When it comes to 15 minutes before your time is up, she will ring the bell. 15 seconds, yeah, not 15 minutes, forget about it. Forget about it. if the moderator feels you're not answering your question, she will interrupt you and chastise you. No. But you should take your 3 minutes to either answer the question or answer the question and tell me something that the other candidate said about you. You can answer that as well. Within your 3 minutes, you don't have any additional time other than the 3 minutes given to you. I will let you both open up with the seat, and we'll go with the 1A first, which is Benjamin Vernon, and then 2A, which is Darrell Morton. And we start to go on stage now. Let me introduce you, moderators.
And our moderators for tonight, I'm asking to stand up, Mr. Chris Washington and Ms. Aaron Godfrey, also from my neighborhood association. Thank you.
So, opening statement, Benjamin Montgomery.
Good evening, Mount Vernon. I want to thank the Fleetwood Citizens Society, Chesterwood, and the Portuguese American Club for hosting this program this evening. My name is Benjamin Montgomery, and I'm honored to be a candidate for the Comptroller of the City of Mount Vernon. I'm not a politician. I must tell you that. Who I am, I'm a concerned citizen who migrated to Mount Vernon from Jamaica, West Indies, 35 years ago, and made it my home. I'm a father, a grandfather, a businessman, a homeowner in Mount Vernon, and a concerned citizen, like most of you. But I'm torn with the inadequacies of the fiscal issues in Mount Vernon. Audit backlog, 6 years. Historical operation failure, delayed payments, missing funds, internal control crisis. And I could not, in good conscience, sit as a 35-year CPA, a forensic accountant, and not do anything about this. I'm vested in Mount Vernon. I'm vested in Mount Vernon, and I wanted to make a difference, to bring some fiscal discipline back to City Hall.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the Fleetwood Neighborhood Association and the Chester Heights Association as well for gathering us today. I'm Darren Gordon. I have been a resident of Mount Vernon since I was born, except for the 10 years in which I went off to school and came back. I have been working in government since 2012, but prior to that, actually I had over 20 years of executive experience managing people and also programs and finances. I've managed over millions of dollars in budgets, both in the not-for-profit and the business sector. I have a bachelor's in business administration degree and also a doctorate in executive leadership. Since 2022, I have served as the city's comptroller. In those 3.5 years, we have completed 4 audits, and the 5th audit is actually scheduled to be released in a few weeks. We also have completed 4 annual financial reports with the Office of the Comptroller's Office in New York State. In addition to that, we have also created policies and procedures. We have also improved the effectiveness of the office by ensuring that taxpayers can make their tax payments online and efficiently be processed. process. We spent about 3.5 years now cleaning up all of the mess that was left before us. And the reality of it is that we did not have any of our bank reconciliations done for several years prior to my taking office, which they have been completed. And so the goal is for us to continue the work that we have already begun, taking Mount Vernon out of its fiscal challenges. And I ask for your support tonight.
Thank you. As the Mount Vernon Comptroller, you will be the guardian of the city's money. The citizens have heard that both of you did not do well in that position. So we will give you the opportunity to explain to us why what they are saying is not true and why you should be the right person for office. So question one, remind you, you have 3 minutes to answer the question. For Dr. Vernon, during your tenure as Comptroller, monies have been taken from the city's bank accounts on more than one occasion. According to media reports, you have mentioned that you have received the fraud alerts to your cell phone and acted to stop more money from being taken. Please explain how this happened and what steps you have taken to prevent it from occurring again, especially after it happened twice. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So first of all, the first time that money was taken from the city's bank accounts, it was by an ACH that actually dealt with the bank. It had nothing to do with the city or the city's operation. It was solely the bank. The second incident that occurred actually was a phishing scam system in which, in order for us to be notified quickly about what was happening with the banks, we then also had the notifications that was coming to our cell phones to tell us that if something was happening. We did receive those notifications. Immediately, we attempted to contact our representatives at the bank. We were unable to get them. And so we went on to the computer to also try to make sure and log into the system to figure out what was happening, and we were locked out of the system. At that point in time, as we attempted to try to get our representatives, we weren't able to do so. And then when engaging with the person, the threatener, who actually contacted us first, in the midst of the questions that were being asked by them, I then notified the bank by email from my cell phone. And that's when the bank actually then finally contacted us and responded. At that point in time, we worked quickly in order to stop any further infractions upon our financial system. What was happening was not only did we have the phishing scam from the text message on the phone, but also on the computer, I received over 200 emails, which was trying to divert me from knowing that there was something that was happening. Since that time, what we have done is we have also increased our notifications. We've also increased we also have increased the ability for us to know when there's something happening with our account. We put in more internal controls. In addition to that, the account that specifically was under question is an account that deals with withdrawals from payroll, which was much more loosely really regulated. Now we have prompt notices. We also have wait times. We also participated in training as it pertains to cyber training. Chase has also issued out that this was not just Mount Vernon, but this actually was a very highly sophisticated phishing scheme that dealt with not only phone, not only text messages, but also the infiltration of their own portal. So now what we have is we have extra layers of security that allows us to be ensured that we are no longer going to be subjected to these kinds of activities.
If elected as Comptroller of the city, you would be responsible for managing the city's bank accounts, as well as making timely filings to other agencies, such as the State Comptroller's Office. However, there have been allegations, mostly on social media, of missing money and/or late financial filings while you were at the health center. Are these true? If so, how can the people of Mount Vernon trust you with their finances?
So, I was recruited to the Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center by visionary Mr. David Ford and Carol Morris to implement policies and procedures. Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center was a going concern. It meant that they would have been closed in 3 months. I went there for 2 years. I implemented all policies and procedures. And after I ended up spending 5 years because because the job was complex. And of course, I left after that to start my own firm. Now, if there is missing money, I'm not sure what that is all about, but that's a rumor. But there was no missing money, and I left on my own terms. Now, with Mount Vernon, the city of Mount Vernon, this would not have happened under my watch. I have 35 years of experience as a CPA and a forensic accountant. I know how to implement and maintain an effective internal control. The charter does dictate that not only should the controller implement separation or segregation of duties, but the mayor should have co-signed on those disbursements. He violated that by utilizing his cell phone without proper safeguard. And as such, the citizens, us, we have to foot the bill for this $420,000 because this was the bank decided that he was complicit. Now this would have never happened on my watch. We, the citizens of Mount Vernon, the citizens of Mount Vernon, when there are inadequacies, when there's fraud, when there are mistakes due to errors and fraud, we have to pick up that tab.
Thank you. The next question.
He gets to rebut.
He was attacked. He was attacked. He needs to rebut.
I'm going to go on to the next question.
Everybody, instructions are very simple. It's 3 minutes to answer the question, and if you do a rebuttal, don't go 3 minutes. Plenty of time to do it.
The next question. What specific steps would you take to ensure transparency and accountability in the city government? How would you improve communication between the council and our residents? Benjamin.
Well, communication with the community, with the stakeholders, our neighbors would be through a portal. I am a big proponent of an open door policy. That means that I'm accessible, and that the reporting requirement, as dictated by the charter, would be communicated on as needed to the community and done on a timely effective manner that the citizens of Mount Vernon can be educated, can be in the know. What was the second part of the question?
How would you improve communications
Right.
between the council and our residents?
The council, well, I can't talk for the council, but what I can talk about is the office of the Comptroller. And that I would be able to communicate through portal and make sure that all the stakeholders have financial records, timely, accurate financial record that has credibility, that can be used, and everyone should be in the know.
I'm going to read the question again. What specific steps will you take to ensure transparency and accountability in the city government? How will you improve communications between the council and our residents? Darren Morgan.
I believe for the last 3 years, I have given the city of Mount Vernon probably the most transparency around the finances than any other comptroller before me. For the last 3.5 years, there have been 13 quarterly reports in accordance with the charter as it is so laid out through the last change with the city charter. In addition to that, we also have had two video presentations about finances, and we've had 3 town halls. In addition to that, periodic letters go out to taxpayers about their taxes and what the process is. And so I believe that I have been the most transparent comptroller that the city has had in several decades. In addition to that, when we talk about the transparency, even when the phishing scam occurred, that evening there was a press release sent out to the residents prior to even the report being done to the police department, and the subsequent reports that was done to that was also done to the FBI, and in our constant conversation with the bank. I also had a specific town hall meeting about that situation, because my belief is that it's the city's money, it's the residents' money, and regardless of the inadequacies or the advances that happen in the office of the comptroller, it is my duty as the comptroller to ensure that you know exactly what is happening at all times. Truth, transparency, and integrity. That is what I believe in this city, and that is what I am dedicated and I will continue to get to the city as we move forward. Because, again, residents of this city elected me to do a job, and when I don't live up to that, I want to make sure that 1, I acknowledge it, and 2, I take the corrective action in order to ensure that it doesn't happen. So, how will I do that? How will I ensure that they are informed and create transparency? Continue to do what I have been doing, and also what we are working on right now is an actual portal through OpenGov where residents of the city will be able to go on and see day by day what is happening with the finances. As it pertains to the council and the mayor, they receive monthly reports on the expenditures and the revenues. They also receive periodic cash flow statements on what is happening with the city. And then also they receive directives from me as to when they have to hold back their spending and when they have to curtail their overtime or anything else that is any line that is overexpended. That's how we will ensure that there's communication between the comptroller's office and the council and the mayor and the residents of Mount Vernon.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. The IDA has been given numerous pilots which deprives the city of the necessary tax dollars to supply the needed city service. What is your perspective on pilots? We're going to start first with Dr. Moyer.
So my perspective on pilots is that we need to continue to work on how we actually giving out the pilots. So I have been on the IDA board since 2020. appointee when the mayor appointed me. Please note that the comptroller, as from a statutory standpoint, is not on the IDA. It's by appointment of the mayor. And so I chose to stay on the IDA so that I could be one involved in the discussions. So over the last few years, one of the things that we have done is we also have changed the UTEP, which is the Uniform Tax Exemption Policy, right? We've improved it from what it was before. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. So what has been happening in IDA for the last 20 years, we've been having discussions about how do we now improve the current UTEP. And we've done some analysis on it. Actually, as of the last meeting, as I, myself, and the assessor shepherded the process of having an outside person come in and do some actual review of what we are doing and how we're doing it, how effective it is, and how we can improve it. I also was the principal negotiator on the last deal in which there was a pilot that came to us, and we held it off and we negotiated a $2 million upfront payment for the school district because it was my belief that what was originally being offered to us was not sufficient and that under no circumstance could we move forward with the current multiplier. Recognizing that the multiplier is not perfect, but we also have to have outside people also come in and review what we're doing that will help us be able to communicate more effectively to the community how pilots can be effective. When they are not effective, then we need to make sure that we hold them. And so that's what we've been doing. I believe firmly that we need to change the paradigm. We need to change the structure of the pilots. And I've been working with that, with the members on the board, as well as school board members who are on the board. And also now we have Urbanomics, who's going to come in, and they're going to review what we've done in the past, what we should be doing, what our actual attrition is, and what our migration is for our enrollment to ensure that we will one day have a proper design and structure for pilots. Pilots are not completely bad, but the way we've been doing them, they have been detrimental to our community.
Mr. Vernon.
Commercial pilots in general bring economic development, jobs, and of course, some help the city. Eaton, New Rochelle has it, White Plains has it, and of course, Yonkers. Mount Vernon have moved from a commercial pilot structure to a residential pilot structure, which, what that does, it robs the city of needed resources. It's trained police and fire, and give away to rich investors that come in and take from Mount Vernon. And this is paid for by the homeowners of Mount Vernon. You and I. Our property taxes, because these guys are given tax relief. Our property taxes have moved in the last 2 years, approximately 11%. That is a problem. When the escrow piece of your monthly payment or your mortgage payment exceeds the debt service, you have a problem. So, I disagree with the residential pilot. Now, there's no monitoring. There's no monitoring at City Hall. They don't have the skill set or the staff that monitor these pilot projects. And as such, the developers are robbing Mount Vernon blind. The negotiation are not real. It's okay. It's okay to talk about what you're doing, as if, but it brings no value to the homeowners in Mount Vernon. I am feeling it. You're feeling it.
That's right.
I don't want to be at City Hall just to talk loud and say nothing. What I want to do is to make sure that I go there and bring some value and fiscal responsibility to City Hall. And that would be to get rid of those residential pilot projects.
Thank you. Question number 4. Where do you stand on the proposed charter revisions that would take Mount Vernon from a strong mayor government, where the mayor appoints the commissioners and oversees the city departments, to a council-managed form of government with a city manager system, and why? This is directed first to Benjamin.
I totally agree with the implementing or introducing a city manager. Mount Vernon has been plagued with incompetence, poor leadership, and what we need in the city is someone who is fiscally responsible, a qualified person to do that job, to make sure that every dollar counts and that your money is not disappearing as it is right now without consequences. The city manager would be recruited from a team of well-trained, well-qualified person, would be a leader that would be responsible for recruiting the team and his staff, and train and supervise those, and make sure that the citizens, like in New Rochelle, it's beautiful when you drive to New Rochelle. Right now, we don't have that same image in Mount Vernon. What we see is broken down street, sidewalks that is busted, everyone crime, darkness. There are times when we can't even find gasoline to put in our garbage trucks. So what we have is those cut-off bag trucks coming around to pick up garbage. That is a problem, and that's because of fiscal irresponsibility. That would not happen if you had a city.
Thank you. Dr. Gordon?
So, first of all, I said that I'm not opposed to the consideration for the change of city government and its structure, right? I think that at all times we should be reevaluating what we do and how do we do it, right? The challenge right now is for us. First of all, there are 2 proposals, which is about the city council having what they call, I guess, a weak mayor system and a city manager system, and also the comptroller's position being changed to an appointed position. Mount Vernon is a very political community, and my concern is that until we determine what is really the right structure as it pertains to the governance, and it may very well be that it is a strong mayor, it may be that it's not to be a weak mayor, but also there's one thing in the middle too, which is what they also call a shared responsibility of governance. And I really believe that Mount Vernon should be looking at a shared model of governance. And we need to be careful about changing 2 particular positions at the very same time. And so while I support the Charter Commission to be able to review this and come up with a proposal, I would like to see what the details are as to how that is going to function as we move forward. Do we need qualified people? Absolutely, we need qualified people. Our elected folks, oftentimes, do we get elected, we get qualified people? We've learned that from experience, that is not absolutely the case, right? So I don't want to prejudge the work of the Charter Revision. I also don't want to also sign on to something that I'm not completely sure that it will work for Mount Vernon. However, what I will say is that we absolutely need to change the way in which we are doing governance in Mount Vernon, right? To the point that was made is that if we go to a city manager that is going to be hired by qualified people, that's not how that works. If you go to a city manager, it's going to be hired by whoever it is the appointing officer is. And so if the appointing officers are the actual city council members, right, then you've got to come up with what is the system for how you actually appoint a city manager and make sure people are held to that standard. Again, so there's little nuances in the charter that will absolutely need to be changed if this is going to be effective. So again, not opposed to it, but I want to see what the city charter revision comes back with and they propose.
Thank you. As we move on to the next question, do you feel the city needs to bring industry back to Mount Vernon and reduce the Mount Vernon residents' taxes? And we'll begin with you, Dr. Moore.
Absolutely. That's a clear, that's a no-brainer, right? The economics of Mount Vernon has to move forward, and the only way for the economics of Mount Vernon to move forward is for there to be money that is coming into the city that is not a part of the tax base. Presently, Mount Vernon has a tax base that is supporting its annual budget that is at 59%. That is high. When you look at our neighboring communities, and this is the work that I've been doing for the last 3 years, right? Is analyzing and looking at it, trying to make the cuts where the cuts need to be made. But Mount Vernon right now has a budget that has about 82% that's related to staffing. That number has to drop, right? That's number one. Number two, the diversification of revenue has to also occur so that we can then increase the percentage of the budget that is not on the tax base. And the best way to do that is to bring in industry. Now, why did Mount Vernon not get hit hard with its sales tax during COVID? Because we had small businesses. We didn't have big business like White Plains, whose malls all shut down, right? We also have a densely populated community, which means that people are buying from home and the taxes are coming in, right? That's how the sales tax has to go up, the franchise tax has to go up, the utility service tax has to go up to the businesses, right? We also have to start to ensure that we also have economics that's downtown that drives a place for people to come. So that's why I went out and got the $1 million grant from the Department of Transportation to look at our transit-oriented community so that we can begin to drive business to downtown. And that will allow us as a community to then shrink the amount of the budget that is supported by our homeowners. So, absolutely, it's about economics, it's about economic drivers, it's about smaller, medium-sized business coming in, it's about utilizing even our industrial corridor down on the southwest side of Mount Vernon as to how we can bring in better business down there as well to drive the tax base, to drive the sales tax up. That's how you move the economics in Mount Vernon.
Thank you. Mr. Montgomery.
One way in which you stay afloat is to make sure that your expenses are low. I looked at the approved budget that was prepared by Dr. Martin, and I see that there is nothing in that budget for DPW to even improve the quality of Mount Vernon. Industries will not come to Mount Vernon the way it looks right now. People are afraid to walk the street because it's dark, it's broken, and what we need is a number of things. Bottom-up budget, so that stakeholders can be a part of this. Number two, we curb or cap our expenses so that we can have the necessary funds. We make sure that our audits are done on time so that we can get our bond rating back. We make sure that we are able to present to the state and federal bodies these reports that are required so that we can access the funds that we need to get it back into the city so that the infrastructure of the city can be improved. That is when these industries will come back to Mount Vernon. Right now they're running. They're staying away. Dr. Morton said that our tax base, the sales tax, is not affected. But without the industry, we can't attract sales tax dollars. In fact, Mount Vernon resident goes to New Rochelle, goes to other towns to spend their dollar right now because Mount Vernon is broken, and because of the way it looks and the infrastructure, we cannot attract industry. We have to fix a couple of things first and make sure that Mount Vernon, the citizens of Mount Vernon, wins.
Question number 6. Residents are not happy about our elected officials who decided to increase their salary by between 45% and 52% by hiding the fact that it was for their salary. We were given a tax increase. Tell us, what would we expect from you? Benjamin.
Contingency appropriation. Disguise spending and bypass proper authorization. And this was the method used. This was what the state slapped on our hands to prevent us from doing. That was bad behavior. That was a discreditable act. In fact, this was in the 2022 audit report where they said that Mount Vernon have been using this method to avoid the proper authorization as dictated by the charter. This was hidden from the public. It was called contingency. That is necessary to buy if you have a overload of salt. If there's the bad weather, what you do, you take you go out and buy additional salt, or get a couple of guys to clean the road and the infrastructure. That is what the contingency funds is supposed to be for. What it was used for was to give increases to Dr. Morton, the mayor, and city council members. 41% increases in salary. Now, we're all members of Mount Vernon. We're all members of Mount Vernon, citizens of Mount Vernon. On a normal, you will get an incremental salary increase of 3% to 5%. Nobody gets 41%. Nobody gets 41%. That was inappropriate. That was a violation of the charter, and that was in every way misleading to the public. Should not have happened.
Excuse me.
Bring your meeting to order.
Sir,
Bring your meeting to
your
order.
candidate.
It should-
You should applaud when you finish talking.
This shouldn't have happened.
Bring your meeting to order, sir.
Agree with that? When you agree with that, do not make noise. After you while you talk. Once you finish, all you want. But let them finish the statement.
There you go. Really, it's right.
This shouldn't have happened. This was a violation of trust. And as public officials, we have to honor the public trust. Now, when you hide, that's not transparent. And that is what I pledge to do, to ensure that transparency comes back to City Hall.
So Mr. Montgomery, first of all, said that it was about contingency spending and that it was inappropriate for this to occur. In 2020, when the state comptroller's office looked at the budget, they talked about the contingency spending, that the comptroller was spending money out of the contingency line without going through the proper channels of getting approval to move the money from contingency to the appropriate line, to the appropriation line to expend it out. Wasn't about how you structure the contingency budget line. The contingency budget line, if you look at the budget, there are two lines that are contingency. One is general contingency, and then there's another one that is contingency that says union negotiations and salaries. And if you remember, if you go back, you can probably find where I also talked about the fact that unfortunately, because we do not have a fund balance, then we're going to end up having to actually put some allocations. And this occurred after the agreement was done between the former mayor and the fire department, and we had to figure out a way to pay it by order of the arbitration. When we fund salaries and increases, they normally come out of the fund balance because we usually put a dedicated amount of money in the fund balance for that to occur. Prior to the approval, actually, of the raises for the elected, I actually articulated that the money that would have been reallocated for these raises as well as the appointed would have to be put into the contingency line because we do not have a fund balance. So it wasn't hiding it. It wasn't trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the public. I actually did communicate that out as to what was going to,
He said no yelling out.
what was,
Hold on one second, Dr. Warren. Once again, please let the candidates have their say without interruption. Thank you.
that was the process, right? That's number one. Number two, I also wrote a memo to the council based upon the fact that I was asked to look at the salaries and to also look at comparative salaries in the area. And I laid out as to what the options were as it pertains to the increases. Please note that the salaries had not been changed since 2007. And we had also increased all of our union We also, the public also, the officials also decided to wait until after everyone else had received all of their increases to determine if it was going to be an increase of the actual elected. At the end of the day, I recognize that it is a challenge and a problem for the residents. And again, as we move forward, we have to do a better job at how we actually deal with these types of situations.
Thank you. It's believed we are closer to bankruptcy. What is your plan to get our finances in order? We'll start with Dr. Morton.
So, first of all, the plan is absolutely to get the audits complete. As I said before, right? We've gotten 4 audits done in 3 years. We have a very aggressive schedule to get those done. The complication of getting the audits done is not really the city's finances, is that we also have to rely on also getting information from the other agencies, such as the Board of Water and the URA. And that oftentimes causes the delay, right, as to why the audits don't get done as quickly as we want them to be done. So the first step is, first of all, to get the audits done. Second is to also make sure that we are, as we are working on now, the taxes and what is outstanding in the taxes is to be able to collect the outstanding taxes to be able to rebuild our fund balance. Because if we also work on our debt and get rid of our liabilities, of which I have been doing, we got it down from $61 million to $35 million, right? As we work on lowering the liabilities and we work on increasing our fund balance, right, we will be in a better position for us then to be able to, and completing our audits will be in a better position for us then to go out and get our bond rating back. Here's the process. We've got to complete the audits. We have to also bring in the revenue that is already out there from the taxes that have not been paid, which is why we're having the tax lien sales, which is why we're now moving forward with the foreclosures, and which is horrible that we have to do it, but the city cannot function without the money that is due. The third thing for us to do is to then be able to bring in the economics into the city, and that's why we're working on things like the transit-oriented community to move, again, the finances forward. Economics needs to be at the center of it. We have the economic task force that's working on how do we bring in new money, right? And we also are working with our partners in the federal and in the state. It has been said that we're not getting any federal or state money. That is absolutely false. In the last 3 years, we've gotten $54 million between state and federal, right? So this is how we're going to be able to ensure that we're not in a state of bankruptcy. The last thing is we absolutely have to cut our costs. We absolutely have to figure out ways in which we can perfect our efficiency of government, which that will mean that we may be looking at how do we excise out staff members that we no longer need because we have efficiency and lower the percentage that is related to actual employees. Those are the tactics moving us forward.
Thank you. The question to Mr. Montgomery. What is your plan to get our finances in order?
Big item is to implement bottom-up budget, to remove all the unnecessary lines that they budget for overtime, $1 million here, $1 million there. And you know what's funny? Is that there is nothing there for training of the staff. It means that at no point where we are right now, at no point was there a plan to recruit and train staff so that we don't spend millions and millions of dollars on consultants. In the approved budget, Dr. Morton has $4,500 for staff training. $4,500 for staff training. I'm not talking about for one person. I'm talking about for everybody. That department would not move. Those audited financial statements would not get completed. Mount Vernon would still be saddled with the irresponsibility of non-compliance. We'll never get our audited financial statement completed and or get our bond rating back. This is a problem. So, what I'm proposing is that we get those audited financial statements completed. And on day one, I not only would recruit and train, but I can do it myself. Unlike Dr. Morton. He's a minister of religion, a very nice guy. But what it requires is competence and a commitment to competence. I'm not going to hear from somebody. I hear he talks about reconciliation. Reconciliation is 10% of what it requires to close the books, to make sure that you get those financial statements completed, and to respond to the auditors. They have not been able to do that. Now, we have to get ahead of this and to make sure that we have the relevant people in-house, the separation of duties, and ensure that the city will grow.
Next question. Major rezoning variances are being brought by developers to the city. Explain your position addressing these rezoning requests. Mr. Montgomery.
Rezoning. All rezoning has to go to the office of the Comptroller. All the agreement, he approved them. They have to go to him. Now, that's when you do the proper oversight and ensure that the city is not giving away the resources that it has currently by development. Now, I disagree with any kind of pilots, rezoning for any kind of pilot that will come in and rob the citizens of Mount Vernon the necessary resources that they need. So, rezoning, as long as it brings value to the citizens of Mount Vernon, I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you. Dr. Morton.
And along with the candidates, will you get anything stated?
Dr. Morton has not completed, or the question is, major rezoning variances are being brought by developers to the city. Explain your position, Dr. Morton.
First, let me try to make sure that I provide some clarity. The Comptroller's office has absolutely nothing to do with rezoning. Nothing. Has absolutely no authority with rezoning. The rezoning goes to the planning department and it goes to the city council as it pertains to rezoning. The Comptroller's office does not have any authority over that at all. As it pertains to rezoning, I believe that the rezoning should fall in line with what the actual comprehensive plan says that it should. And so therefore, any rezoning that happens prior to that comprehensive plan being completed should also be carefully reviewed before it is even moved and advanced forward. That's my position on that, because the Comptroller's office has no control whatsoever over rezoning. Now, while we're here, there was something else also said about this that I just got to say to you. First of all, $1 million of overtime is only in 2 budgets, and that's the fire and the police. There was also some other comments that were said earlier too about DPW having no money and not being anything for DPW. DPW is the 3rd largest departmental budget of the city after police and fire, right? And while yes, there are small amounts in the budget for training, I'll go back to my statement earlier. We have to shift all of the money that we are giving that is related to employees. If we become a little bit more efficient, we then can lower the number of FTEs so that money can be shifted to appropriation and not be a part of what is above the line. Because again, you're only working with approximately about 16 to 18% in operation. And that is not where Mount Vernon needs to be, which is why over the last few years, what I have been attempting to do with the mayor and the council is to lower that amount that is related to employees as best as we can. And that's the challenge that we have, right? If we want to put money into the actual services, what we have to do is to make sure that the percentage of the budget is not so tilted that it is all above the line. I have learned municipal finance. I have taken over 163 CPEs over the last 3 years because I want to make sure that I understand it. So to say that I'm not competent, to say that I don't understand it, to say that I don't know what I'm doing is absolutely false because audits have been getting done. Both the independent audit and the New York State Comptroller's report have been doing done.
Thank you. Now the candidates will give their closing statements. Please stay a few minutes to hear the city court judges after they have given their statements, so that you will feel the best, who would be best to sit on the bench.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you.
I understand.
All right. Once they're finished, next day around, in case you have a question too, we have 2 judge candidates that I can tell you their qualifications and why they should be sitting on the bench. I saw your name was next, so I forgot to finish. I apologize. Thank you.
Mount Vernon, I'm asking you to support me to continue the work that I've already started. I believe that I have brought accountability, transparency, and stability to this position. Now, while we recognize that all of the work has not been done, and there may be some disagreements on how we have gotten the work done, I believe that I have absolutely upheld everything I promised you 4 years that I would do. I have done. I have completed the audits. I've completed 4 audits in 3 years. The 5th audit is scheduled to come out in the next few weeks, and then we have an aggressive plan to get 2 audits done this year. We have also completed all of the state actual requirements. We are also working with our federal government about as it pertains to our single audits. We have brought in $54 million of funding into this city. We have also increased the efficiency of the Comptroller's office. We've made it easier for taxpayers to be able to pay their taxes. We are working with our taxpayers who have a debt and who owe taxes. We are also moving forward with the sale of our properties that also, I must say to you, also properties that were acquired by the city prior to me being there. All of these systems were not completely kept in a way in which we could move forward quickly. So first thing we have to do is complete an environmental scan, understand where we are, and to move the city forward. I know municipal finance. I sit on the board of the New York State Society for Municipal Officers. Because I believe in this work, I have taken the extra step to learn all of the details that are required for this job, and I also hired competent staff to do the job. We are getting the work done. Now, Vernon, please support me that we can continue to get the work done.
Good afternoon again, I'm Vernon. My name is Benjamin Montgomery, and I'm running as a controller for the city of Mount Vernon. Row 1A. Now, I'm running not because I'm a politician. I'm running because I'm a concerned citizen, your neighbor. And I'm running because Mount Vernon is experiencing an extreme critical crisis, fiscal crisis. We are behind on everything. And it is apparent that the current controller did not understand the task that was given to him. In fact, I don't think he understood the duties of the office of the controller. 5 years audit in the back. 5 years audit in the back. Bond rating below sea level. We have not been able, we said we'd be able to get some money. However, the inefficiency at City Hall is appalling. They're sending back checks to taxpayers, $24,000 for 17 cents, because they are unable to process this. They don't have the skill set and the people in-house. He's supposed to, the controller's office needed 5 officers and 3 deputies. They are understaffed. And budget and funds are displaced, going in another direction. I need to go in and fix this problem. And my role is 1A. Please go out.